Okay, so this is part 3 of the Central Park 5 case. If you have not watched the other 2, what are you doing? Go back, watch the other 2, and then come back because we're going to talk about some different evidence.
You've had time.
Yeah. We're going to talk about different evidence. We're going to talk about just a lot of things. So, yeah.
And we're going to do some theories, right? Some Reddit. So this is going to be a lot of allegedly and a lot of things that you don't want to take as fact. It's just people's kind of opinions or unverified information. So a lot of this video you should take with a grain of salt. This is more just theories on how things could have happened or what might have happened, things like that.
There is some fact. I will point that out when we get there, though.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be more you have to point out the fact than you having to point out the opinion.
True.
Maybe I might be wrong.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Maybe it's 50-50.
Yeah. Some of my content has mention of extreme violence, sexual assault, and or other triggering content. Discretion is advised. Okay, so, yeah, I got a cold, so I probably sound like, I don't know, what I imagined Dennis Rodman to sound like.
Dennis Rodman? Really?
Yeah, I imagine his voice to be like super low.
It is kind of, but I just don't know where you picked him out of all the people. Like
a person, I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Dennis Rodman was not who I expected. She doesn't really watch a ton of sports, so for her to go to Dennis Rodman is throwing me a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little, I don't know.
Maybe you're thinking of crime, Dennis Rodman. Like,
there you go.
The two go together.
Yeah, I'm also probably a little high on medication. So.
She's probably had some sinus medication already. NyQuil, you gonna pass out on us?
Probably.
Oh gosh.
So then they.
So I was reading this on Reddit.
All right, so we're back. I will say we didn't get many comments, and by many I mean like hardly any.
We did get some not question comments, but just like kind of nice comments, right?
A few of them. I don't know if they were on this one or not. I'd have to go back and see. Honestly,
thank you for those who do comment. Is the main thing.
Yes, thank you for those who comment. But we didn't get anything that was like, I want to point out or anything like that in this one. That's specifically about the case. So we're just going to go by kind of my, not sure where this fit in. So
this is like
part 3.
Kind of like the scraps. Like
yeah, leftovers.
Little facts that, leftovers.
And also we'll get into kind of some of the opinions and some more of the evidence stuff that has been kind of back and forth that got me like going, what?
Yeah, because where I left off, what I remember is thinking the boys in the case were likely maybe innocent of the main crime, but they were also in a place they shouldn't be. So like in doing things that they shouldn't be. So they were innocent of the bigger bad crime is where I was at. But like they were also allegedly part of a big group doing other things that were illegal. So they were innocent, but not like 100% like angels,
right
in the night.
Yep.
But there's a big difference. There's a big difference between committing murder and that and just mischief and kind of terrorizing people. It's a pretty big leap from one to the other.
Right. So I did want to point out that we're going to look at both sides of the case. I'm in no way saying that there was not racism in this case, because there for sure was.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of get both opinions, because if you go on the internet and you look up the other side, there's not much. And what there is more people saying, like, more alluding to the racism key part of it, where it's like, these boys were doing wrong, and because of their race and because of them all being in a group together, they probably did it. And I don't think that's a fair assumption.
It's not at all.
No, it's not. But like, that's the only other side that's out there.
Right. Which, I mean, I feel bad for you because you're having to
navigate all of that.
Yeah. Dig through and find out actual other sides, because we do want to see, investigate the case from every angle, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same point in time, I don't know why people take it there.
Right. And I do think like some of those people have little slivers of truth in there. It's just weeding through to get all of that, or their opinions that aren't based on racism. And I'm like, well, if it's the bigger picture of racism, is this still racism? It's a whole big process with this case. So
yeah, I mean, an example would be, I'm again still mad at Elon Musk, but with everybody hates on Elon Musk and all the things he's doing with Twitter. But I don't necessarily hate what he's done with some of the space program stuff. Yes, the rocket failed and stuff, but I think space exploration is interesting. So a small sliver from Elon would be the space part. The rest of it, maybe Tesla. Yeah, he did okay with that. But yeah, that's his small slivers for me.
Right.
There's my example.
Yeah. And there are small slivers, but I mean, in the big picture, it's been proven through DNA that Mateus Reyes did this. He did do this. It's just whether or not you believe that they did anything.
Whether they're guilty by association, basically.
Kind of, or if they had done anything. Like I do think they need to be convicted. Right. I do think they need to be convicted of the crime of hurting the other people that they obviously did.
Well, at this point, that's probably statute of limitations, though, right? Like that.
Well, I think they already served it because it was lumped together with Trisha's case, which they served but didn't.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Which they served over what they needed to serve.
Right.
By quite a bit. If it was the lesser crime, it would have been a lot less time. So they served over what they would have had to serve for the lesser crimes.
Right. And I do think that the bigger picture of this is trial by media. And media just, I mean,
I feel like we could have a whole
fire for this crime.
I feel like we could have a whole episode on media's influences on these things.
Yeah, it would be a pretty good episode, honestly. So there are many different viewpoints out there. Kind of want to take a look at the evidence. I mean, like I said, Mateus Reyes is guilty, so we don't really have to look into that.
Right.
I'm looking more towards, some of like the weird stuff in this case. And what's hard with this case is you have these court transcripts from the court where they went to trial. Mm-hmm. But then after the fact, you have the court system saying none of this was true, or none of this is liable, or the scientific evidence wasn't true. So you have reported on evidence in court cases that's like fact, you think, and then you have to go back and erase that.
Right, because the police came back later and said, hey, they didn't do this.
Right. And the police did fudge a little bit of evidence, I feel. And the courts, like the prosecution, I think, try to spin it.
They don't go back and redo a case and be like, all right. Let's clear what evidence you did and didn't actually do and what was right and wrong evidence-wise.
Yeah, they kind of acted like, oh, well, all of it needs to be erased. But, like, when you get people like us who go back after the fact, like, it's not erased. And then we don't know what needs to be erased and what doesn't.
Right.
And it's very hard to weed through. So if I get anything wrong, please forgive me. Please point it out.
Yeah.
Also, like if I say something wrong or I don't know, use my words wrong, please let me know because I'm just on YouTube. I
do a lot of research though.
I try, man.
It's just there's a lot of names, a lot of evidence, like a lot of things that if they're just off by a little bit can kind of, be misleading. So we don't want to mislead.
Right. So first, there is clear racism and discrimination in the case. The media used words like the word that I said that they were doing. Wilden.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't remember the word, but I remember kind of what happened. So,
but they also
thanks for saying it again.
Right. They also, put them into like they were a gang. They were, just really harsh things that didn't need to happen. They looked at this group of Black men in itself, and they said this causes fear,
right?
And that's not fair to do in any sense of the word.
Honestly, I'd be scared of a group of white men. So like,
I'd be more scared.
I would be more scared. So like, we need to readjust what fear is, because sometimes, most of the time, white people scare me more than anybody.
Right. And we have to also keep in mind that this media coverage came out in the first couple of hours. So This was before they went to trial. This is before any evidence was shown. This was the police and the media just labeling them as guilty before we knew anything.
And we've talked about the fact that like the media doesn't always go back and fix, like retract things either. Mm-hmm. Like just, they might have got it wrong and then just been like, oh, well, sorry, but we're, we don't have to go back and reprint something saying we were wrong.
Right. So let's look at the flip side to that. And that is that you have a large group of individuals in the park where there was incidents happening. Let's take out race. Let's take out, the age of the defendants or anything like that. And let's just say there's a big group of people. They're in the park. They're fleeing from these incidents that are happening. Mm-hmm. You have the cops going, well, they did it, obviously, because you're fleeing and you're there. And, if you take racism out of it.
Which, yeah, we know that's a big thing.
Right. That was definitely their number one.
That's why we're trying to be clear at the beginning. We know that is a big factor that we're taking out of it.
Mm-hmm. And you're getting all these 911 calls, people saying there's this group of men beating people up in the park. Mm-hmm. This was before they even found Trisha, that they brought these boys in. To a certain extent, like, they did get who was doing it. Now,
doing things.
Not doing Trisha's, because it wasn't even, they didn't even know about it yet. Right. Now, I don't think the way they handled it while singling out those 5 was the right way to do it.
We talked about coercion,
yes,
and confessions. We talked about not really kind of fighting them on the lawyer thing a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they sounded like they fought them a little bit on the lawyer.
Right. That does come up later too. What I will say in this respect is I have to watch myself sometimes, because I even do it. Like, you see a woman that died and you're like, the husband did it. Like, we just automatically go to certain judgments. It's almost been
kind of like a joke in the true crime community, that it's always the husband. Like,
right.
Yeah. Or some love interest.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that good police work? No. But,
no.
This happens over and over and over again. So, that is the flip side to
I will say
happened.
It makes sense in the motive space, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, in that situation, the husband did it. It makes sense, like, that they're in a relationship. So, like, there's possible motives there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense in this situation where there's just a group of people. Mm-hmm. Like, it just doesn't seem like that gives it motive.
Right.
It just seems like they're in the area, mm-hmm. I guess, and doing bad things.
Yeah. So this is where I wanted to bring up the Armstrong report. Now, I'm not going to quote this word for word. This was a big investigation. But there's articles listed at the bottom of all of my source information that where I got this from. But it's a New York Times article in particular. So in 2002, after Mateus Reyes confessed, a team was brought together to review the Central Park 5 case and their trials. So this is a little bit word for word here. New York City Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly had a panel review this case to determine whether the new evidence made the police basically that they did anything improper or incorrect.
So this is more to investigate the police.
Right. This is investigating the investigation.
Right.
So they're trying to decide whether the police needed to be charged in anything that they did in the Central Park Jogger case.
Right.
This panel was chaired by attorney Michael F. Armstrong, the former police chief counsel, and he had documented widespread corruption in the NYPD.
So that's already interesting. So he is like a former police counsel, basically. So he in the past represented the police,
right.
And now he's saying like there's a lot of corruption. So
right.
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, he documented all of the police corruption and all of that stuff in 1972.
Oh wow!
So he did this long before.
Yeah,
the Central Park Jogger
what's
case.
that? 30 years? That's hard. I think 30 years.
And a 43-page report was released in January 2003. So they worked on this case for a long time.
You also have to think too. This just kind of popped into my head, but this is New York, and 9/11 happened in 2001.
True.
So this came out, and some of this stuff, I mean, the last few years of it probably was delayed by that because you had all of your police and first responders focused on other things.
Right. This report does not say that Matias Reyes didn't do it. It says there's no doubt he did with DNA evidence. However, it explores and names the possibility that he may not have done this alone. It says that the only person you have that says he acted alone is the convicted person himself. And that's not much to go on. So that's kind of why they wanted to go back into this.
Oh, I kind of get that, but I almost think that is more that they should give that more credit than it sounds like they are, just because what reason does he have to protect everybody else? It was just me. Why? Why? If he had other people, what reason does he have to protect those other people? But
I don't know. But to me, it just is very convenient. And I keep coming back to that. Every time I'm laying there at night thinking about this case, I keep coming back to the fact that why did these two men in jail come together, talk about it, and then Matias Reyes confess?
Yeah.
That just doesn't compute for me. I don't know if he felt guilty, but it's
hard to believe he has a conscience.
I know. It doesn't compute.
I get that. It is a weird coincidence. I mean, it's weird that they met in two different prisons too. So yeah, but I mean that they had no control over.
Right. The report concluded that the 5 men whose convictions had been vacated had most likely participated in the beatings and the SA of the jogger, and the most likely scenario was that both defendants and Reyes assaulted her, perhaps successfully. The report says Reyes has most likely either joined in the attack as it was ending or waited until the defendants had moved on to their next victim before doing stuff himself. I'm trying to tiptoe around certain words.
Right.
Sorry. He basically SA'd her, inflicting upon the brutal injuries that almost caused her death. Despite the analysis conducted by the district attorney's office, New York City detectives supported the 2003 report. The panel said there had been no misconduct in the 1989 investigation of the Central Park Jogger case. So
they're saying that, according to that report, they feel like they were at least part of attacking her, maybe before, maybe during, maybe this guy just showed up and got in the middle of it. So yeah, they're saying they were, according to this one, probably somewhat involved.
Yes. The flip side of this, though, and I think a lot of people go back to the Armstrong report, when they're like, well, all of these people, they investigated this case for so long, and they're saying that they had something to do with it. But you also have to look at the flip side, where the police department doesn't want to say they were wrong.
100% wrong.
They don't want to say they were 100% wrong. They already...
They're like, we're right. We just weren't fully right.
I mean, you have lawsuits pending.
Right.
You have cops that don't want to admit that they maybe made a racist decision.
Yeah.
There's two sides of that,
Yeah. Yeah, that's odd in a lot of ways, because, like, so you said the guy had worked with the police, but then he had pointed out a lot of corruption, but then his report was kind of on the police's side, so that's weird too. So it makes me like, I don't know. It makes me like, okay, do I believe him more because he pointed out corruption in the past, but this time didn't point out corruption, or does it make me believe him less because he was originally working with the police departments?
And unfortunately, like this case, it's just whatever you believe, because they're never going to really know.
Yeah, I mean, they've gone through the evidence they've gone through. Like, we know that Reyes was, the main person, at least.
Yep. So let's talk about the interrogation. Now, I may skip around a little bit. This is going to probably sound a little non-coherent because I'm just throwing all the leftovers into one.
But if you watch the first two, you'll
hopefully follow
slide into different places of where we were when we discussed it.
Right. So the videotaped confessions started after the detectives finished an unrecorded interrogations. So,
which we kind of talked about, like that maybe being coached confessions, right? Where they're like, are you sure it was, your fist you used? Maybe it was a stick,
So they basically, what that is saying is that they interrogated them for 7 hours.
None of it on the record.
And then finally it was like, got the answer they wanted. So they were like, oh, we can push the record button now.
Right.
Which happens in a lot of cases, unfortunately.
I don't know how that's legal. I feel like the whole thing should be recorded.
Like,
yeah.
I think they have to be, because like
this.
Right. And like
this.
You have security footage everywhere.
Right. Because I mean, like you would think you would, but I know there are laws in terms of when you give consent to be recorded. So I mean, I guess you could potentially walk in and say, like, start recording me now, and they might have to. I don't know. I guess we'd need a lawyer for that. So if any lawyers watch this, let us know.
Right. You also have the fact, a lot of people brought this fact up, that these were kids and they didn't know the law. Like, because in a lot of research, I see like them being like, well, why did they say all that if they didn't do it? I don't think they understood that lying is against the law sometimes. I don't think they understood that they could get a lawyer. I don't think they understood any of that.
Well, and also they were, when it was off the record, they were turning them against each other, saying person A said you did this.
Right.
And so they're sitting here going, well, I have to say this and say, like, I had a lesser part in it, but like say I did what they said I did to get out of this. So like they were twisting everybody's stories into making people think they were saying stuff about each other that they weren't, to make everybody believe they had to say something or they were going to get more trouble.
Right. You also have these interrogations going sometimes until 3:30 a.m. The police can...
It's torture at that point.
Right. The police can legally hold you and interrogate you for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I don't know what that time is.
I don't either. I think it's different in each state, honestly.
Probably.
Is this illegal to do? No. Is it unethical to do?
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, it wasn't illegal for them to do certain things, but it definitely wasn't right.
I'm going to interrogate people by making them listen to me sing, and I'm just going to sing for as long as I can until somebody just says, I give up. What do you want? What do you want me to say?
Okay.
I'd be an incredible detective.
There you go. I do think they set off the investigation all wrong. You have these boys describing the incident very clearly, that they talk about coming up behind the jogger and beating her, details that maybe they did beat her, maybe they didn't beat her. They had the cut on Kevin's face. They had all of this stuff, but they didn't go about it in the right way at all.
Right.
They didn't follow up with anyone else. They didn't collaborate anything. They just wanted them to say what they wanted them to say and be done with it.
And we've talked about this before. Their goal is to close cases. It sounds bad because most people are going to think like you want to find the person who did it. Mm-hmm. But the goal is for them is to close cases, because they don't want to have open cases sitting out there for years and years and years and a bunch of cold cases. They don't really know how that part of the system works, but they get in trouble for that. They get, it looks really bad on the department. So they're incentivized at least to close cases, mm-hmm. even if they get the wrong person.
Right.
That doesn't mean there aren't good ones out there. They're like, we got to make sure we get the right person because this isn't ethical. But they are incentivized to get closed cases.
Mm-hmm. So the flip side to that is that Corey Wise mentions in his interrogation that Kevin was scratched by Trisha Meili. Now, this is in his police interviews. It is recorded. People question how Corey knew that happened that night if it didn't really happen that night.
Right.
Like, how did he know he was scratched?
Because I guess it depends on if he saw him before he went into the station or not, basically.
Yeah. Or if it happened that night and they had seen it happen
if they were
another way. I don't know.
If they're all in a group together, you'd think they all got caught together.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking that maybe it didn't happen, but you would think.
Right. But people point to that. Like, how did he know?
Yeah.
A big thing that they pointed out in this YouTube video that was on the other side was that certain men that the police tried to get to confess didn't. And they say, why did these 5 boys confess and the other ones didn't?
That's such a weird way of looking at it.
It is. So there is no testimony from Stephen Lopez. He denied he was there and denied all wrongdoing. There's a man named Michael Briscoe. He denies ever being there. That was it. Never caved. Steve, I've got another guy. The cops tried to say that everyone told us you were there. He says, I wasn't there. Didn't see the lady at all. That was it.
So I think that answers that question. You might have more to do. Sorry if I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay.
But like, I feel like that answers that question, though, is like I feel like they tried to coerce it out of everybody, but then there were people that were like, I was not there. And
right.
Those people that didn't let the coercion work on them, they were the ones that didn't get brought in because they didn't have anything to go off of. Since they already had 5 who let the coercion work, they're like, all right, we got 5 now. Like, we should be good. We should at least get it to stick on someone.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. The other side says it's because they really didn't do it. And the boys...
They might not have.
Right.
I mean, I would be doing that if I had nothing to do with it. I'd be like, I was not there.
Yeah.
I was probably asleep or eating pizza or something. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can promise you that much.
Right.
The park, exercise.
There's also a man named Tony Montavo. He says he was not there.
Okay, that sounds fake then. Like, it sounds like Tony Montana, the Scarface guy.
Right. So Corey Wise, we have to also think about the fact that Corey Wise was the youngest. So he was very impressionable.
Right.
And he was like the big driving force behind the story. Like,
is he the one that got the longer sentence or no?
I don't remember, but I do know that Corey was the youngest, and he in those.
I don't think it was Corey, because the one that got the longer sentence had to be tried as an adult.
An adult,
and
right?
Corey being the younger, I don't think that
Corey was the one that talked to Mateus Reyes, though.
Okay, maybe it was. I don't know. This is where we're saying there's 5 different names. It's kind of hard to piece that all together.
And the reason that I bring up Corey Wise, and why a lot of people do, is you watch those confessions and he's just this like little baby. He just looks so young.
Yeah.
And he was the one that like they really went hard at, and they were like, I feel like they were, if we could get him, we can break
everybody. The young kid.
Right.
Most likely.
Right. What they did to him was terrible.
Yeah.
But Corey Wise told people the day after this had happened, before he went into the cops, I believe. So I think there was like early morning hours there, that the cops were looking for him because of an essay of a lady in the park.
But that's like rumors that people that were associated or knew him.
People didn't really even know a lot of this happened to Trisha. So how did Corey know? That was a big thing that people pointed out. According to witnesses, all the boys said that they did not SA her. They all denied it. But some people had said, I saw so-and-so do it.
Right.
Outside of the testimony and the court and the interrogations and all of that.
Right.
So they told people, I guess. It's so hard reading those words and not saying them.
I know. I get that.
I need to start writing it differently.
But, I mean, I don't know what they're doing there. That, to me, makes no sense. If they didn't actually witness it, why they wouldn't be saying that. Because, I mean, at this point, they're already serving. You know, it's not changing. I don't know. It's not changing anything, I guess, is what I mean. So why would they be changing their story to being like, unless somehow it made them innocent, I guess.
So this is where some of the stuff gets me, because this is some of the like DNA-ish stuff.
Right.
Now, there's certain things we got to remember. DNA testing only began in 1985. And this was of hair, skin, blood, and bodily fluids. 2 years before the Central Park case. So this was a very new science. Trace evidence was changed in the 1990s and how they gather that. Right. So it's still like trace evidence wasn't even fully what it is
trace
now.
Evidence, we're talking about like skin, fingerprints, all that stuff.
So when I go through some of this stuff, like, let's keep that in mind. Let's also keep in mind of the back and forth on what investigators said and then what they retracted later. Because some of this was probably retracted, but yet we don't fully know.
Right.
But some of the things I saw were very interesting. So there was quite a bit of blood evidence. There was blood stains on Santana's right sneaker. Yusuf's jacket had blood on it. Lopez's underwear had blood on it.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Did you say he was one of the ones that, I mean, I'm getting the names mixed up. Was he one of the ones that wasn't questioned?
No, he was questioned. He was one of the 5. These are all the 5 boys. Okay. There was semen stains literally everywhere. In the underwear of Antron McCrae, Kevin Richardson. Santana had semen on his sweatshirt. The boys' underwear were also stained with grass, dirt, and debris, as well as semen. So let's stop there for a second, because that's a lot.
I don't know what to make of that.
So this is what I go down a rabbit hole here, because the blood, okay, if all of this is true, let's just say that.
Yeah.
Because we don't know.
Because we don't know what was retracted and what wasn't.
Right. If all of this is true, the blood, we don't know if it is even Trisha's.
Yeah.
It could have been from someone else that they...
Right. They didn't test either one of those, right?
And they did admit to hurting other people that night. It could be their own blood, for all we know.
Yeah, and I thought that too.
I mean, Richardson had a... Was it Richardson? One of them had a cut.
Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin Richardson had a cut. So, I mean, it could be his own blood, right?
Right.
We don't know. The semen stains...
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, that's so confusing. It's so messed up.
So you have police testing all of these boys' underwear, all of everything that they own, and you have semen. My questions are endless. Is the semen new? Is the semen old?
Right.
Is the semen from a different time? Is the semen
I'm going to be gross here, but like when you're talking about them...
Teenage boys.
Yeah, like did they... I'm not saying they didn't do anything by this, but like had they not changed their clothes since they did something? Like, I'm not saying that makes them innocent, but when they have it on themselves versus when they have it on the victim, I think is a completely different conversation.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like you come back to what they said in the final wrap up of everything was that Mateus Reyes
was the only one
that was present on the victim. So that makes me believe that they're just testing all of these young boys' underwear and they're getting all this semen and they're that's proof. And it's not.
That's the age where boys do that kind of stuff. Like,
exactly.
I mean, it's uncomfortable to talk about, but
it is
when teenage boys are like that, that's when they're that age, that's what they do. Like,
right.
I'm so glad I don't have a boy.
But I mean, I just went down a rabbit hole because like at first I heard all of this stuff about all of their underwear, and then I heard that they had semen found in socks. And I'm like, those are the two places that boys are going to have semen stains.
So
what the fuck?
The confusing part about the sock was that one was weird to me, that you said that they found a sock with semen in it at the
scene. Right.
That makes it a little more like, okay, that's
But I don't even know if that's true.
We don't know. Yeah.
I saw it in one thing, but it could have been retracted. It could have been semen, old semen, and he just lost a sock. We don't know where all this semen is coming from.
If the video wasn't going to be demonetized from that say stuff, the number of times that you've said semen are
the last 5 seconds.
We're talking about the Navy, people.
We are.
So that's all good points though. I do think the difference is the victim. And it's hard because there's no witnesses too.
Yeah.
That just...
So let me go on here. So the boys' underwear were stained with grass, dirt, and debris. I think police point to that as like they had their pants off at some point and that they were rolling around in the dirt.
Okay.
But we don't even know.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how to describe this to y'all, but like, if you do anything where you fall in the grass, like you're probably going to get some dirt on your underwear. Like it just, and I know this from playing football and stuff.
And they were fighting people. They were probably fighting each other because they're boys.
If you hit the ground, that's probably going to happen. Like I played tackle football and there was debris.
Right.
That sounds so horrible, but I mean, you play tackle football in the yard with your friends, you're going to get dirt on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to look at the other side of this too. There's more, just to say that. But no more semen, but there's more.
Good.
Probably semen.
We can't have any more of that.
But what I will say is, are we trying to make them innocent? Are we looking at it through a lens of...
I think I am a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I do think they're innocent in this, or at least I shouldn't say innocent. Our discussion has taken me from they're innocent to, okay, they're innocent of the biggest charge, but they probably had some other involvement, either with, like, in terms of seeing what happened, or in terms of, like, if it's just from a witness standpoint, or if it's just from other things that they did throughout the night, they're maybe guilty of those things.
Right.
But, so it made me think they're a little more guilty, just still not of the big one.
Mm-hmm. And I say, like, if you're going to take this stuff to court, if you prove it to me, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of these things they couldn't definitively prove, so I don't know how they found him guilty. Well, but that's just me.
And also, for them to go back and prove them innocent, that's why we're questioning everything. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to go back and say, yeah, they were innocent, we found them innocent, then everything in the case is in question at that point.
Right. So they did find hair evidence, but like I said, hair, skin, and blood was very new.
Know. His hair still, or did they get that down better? Is hair still one of those ones that's kind of hard to exactly?
I mean, I think they have it better, but I mean, I don't think
it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew there's certain ones that they're like, they kind of call junk sciences, which I don't know if hair is.
I mean, the big thing in a case is if you can find bodily fluids
or fingerprints,
right? But hair evidence you can kind of explain away. Like, let's say you were to kill me, like,
I won't.
We live in the same place,
right?
Your hair's gonna be everywhere. They can't prove definitively that your hair's not gonna be there.
And I shed.
Right.
I basically shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have probably hair on me right now.
Right.
So yeah, I've thought that before too, honestly. Mm-hmm. And like, you just give somebody a hug and you can have transfer a hair.
Being in their car, anywhere.
Right.
It's definitely harder to prove. But they say there was hair evidence consisted with Trisha on the clothing of Kevin Richardson. It was a head hair.
But you have to be close to have that transfer, so that is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit.
It could have happened though if he was attacking her.
Yeah, if he did the first, like we were saying, the smaller part of it. Yep. Still illegal. Still.
Stephen Lopez also had a head hair on his black long-sleeved shirt, and then there was soil evidence on the victim. That matched Antron McCrae, Raymond Santana, and Kevin Richardson.
That's soil evidence. That is the first time I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
What are they going to be like? This is Central Park soil. Like,
yes.
Like, are they
from the same part of Central Park?
I don't know how you would say that.
So now I would almost believe it a little bit more because science has come.
I don't know if it's come that far though, because I haven't heard of anything.
I've heard of it before in cases, but it's very rare.
But of like Central Park, is like going to be like the same climate and stuff. Like it's not like you're talking about like soil from Kansas versus soil from Colorado where it's like colder and stuff.
Right.
I don't know. I don't. Somebody's gonna have to prove soil evidence to me.
Yeah. So looking at all that, you think, oh, okay, well, they're guilty. Like, but they didn't prove any of that, and the stuff that they thought they had proved was junk science anyway at the time. So why did I even bring it all up? Who knows?
Not used to that, like being there.
I'm not.
We reorganized the set a little bit,
right? But who knows why I brought it up? Because it doesn't really matter in the film. End game.
That's why it's in the scraps.
Here we are. Yep. All right. So Mateus' Reyes confession. Now, he confessed and had this big story. So New York journalist Nicholas Stix reports that one inmate says Reyes told him that he heard the jogger screams and raped her only after the Central Park 5 was finished with her.
The whole time, that's kind of what I wondered if what happened, which is still pretty messed up because they still attacked her.
Right.
And her injuries to the back of her head and to her eye and everything, they were really bad. So it makes me wonder if they did attack her first that badly, or if Reyes came in and attacked her on top of that too.
Right. So in his confession, he did not remember if the victim was wearing a bra or not at the time. He does not recall a lot of details about how she was facing, what she was wearing, or her description. He didn't know her hair length. He did say that he ran behind her for a long time in a zigzag motion as to not alert her.
Hold on. If somebody's running behind me in a zigzag motion, I'm going to be very alerted.
I am, yeah, that's the most alert I'll ever be.
I will immediately be alerted.
But you gotta remember, she's jogging, she has headphones on. She doesn't know if someone's behind her.
Yeah.
But all I can picture is this guy, like,
this dumb guy just going
right. Which, oh my gosh.
But an important part about that, if what he's saying is correct, then what I just said about, and what I was getting at is, like, the wounds that she had were, I mean, they made her lose her memory. They were really bad, like skull fractures, things like that. And she was unconscious and didn't remember any of it. If she was running when he did this, then that means he likely would have done further things to incapacitate her, if that makes sense. So, like,
they don't match, basically.
Yeah, I'm not saying what the boys did. If the boys attacked her first and then he attacked her, that the boys didn't do anything. But I'm just saying, like, the brutal part of it may have all came from Reyes, if that's how it happened.
Right. And it doesn't match. Like, what he says in his interrogation was he was doing that zigzag motion, came up behind her, grabbed a large stick, beat her, and
which
then
they did say that it was caused by a stick,
right,
originally.
Right.
So that part matches up.
What he told the inmate was that the Central Park 5 did it, and then he
came in after. Gotcha.
Right. So they don't match, but I mean, it's still something to note.
Right.
He mentions that he did not take her socks or her shoes off. However, they got semen off of one of her socks from him. There's also pictures of the socks laying in the leaves in the park as evidence. He says he truly did act alone, and he did do the initial attack. So there's just some inconsistencies.
There's just so many, different stories out there.
This was interesting to me. Corey Wise mentions a man named Rudy that was there at the time. Now, this is in Corey's...
We're talking about Giuliani?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I'm sorry. I mean, he was the New York governor around that time.
Oh, no.
Or mayor, I guess.
No. So Corey Wise, he's saying this in his interrogations. Now, take this with a grain of salt, because he's obviously being coerced. But he mentions a man named Rudy. This Rudy was, quote unquote, playing with the victims. They use a word, but I'll say upper half during the attack. And that he also stole her Walkman. Now, Mateus Reyes also goes by the name Rudy. So that's kind of a coincidence there.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like you proved that by the Walkman partially.
Right. Well, he did steal things from her.
Oh, okay.
When Mateus was questioned, he did say that he took the victim's fanny pack and Walkman. So there you
go. So I wonder when they found out that he stole things from her. Like, because if they found out that he stole things from her while everybody else was already serving, like, while the cases were going on or while they're already serving, I feel like it should be like a pretty big red flag immediately to reopen the case. Like, he has stolen things from a victim. Maybe we should reopen the case and see what he had to do with it.
Right. None of the boys knew this boy very well. He was just part of the big group that they were in. So Mateus said that he did other crimes with a boy named Lopez, which is
One of the
one of the
boys.
Central Park Five. All right, so here's another interesting little tidbit. On the appeal, Yusuf Salam's attorneys charged or said that he had been held by police without access to parents or guardians. Now, the appeal court upheld this conviction because they said that Yusuf Salam lied to police about his age. Yusuf Salam said he was 16, the legal age to interrogate without a adult, but he was actually 15 at the time. So they basically said,
I don't know. That's odd to me. Why would he say that he was the wrong age?
Yeah, I don't know that, but also I think this is
and I would think if someone knew the law, they would say the opposite way. They'd say they're younger.
Right. And I think these are pulling at strings not to get sued.
Yeah. Right.
But they did upheld that part. So
it makes me wonder if that part was recorded where he said his age too.
I don't know.
Because if it was not part of the recorded interrogation and he was he said he was 15 and they're like, we're going to write he was 16.
Yeah. They say, though, when he informed police of his true age, they allowed the mother to enter the room. I don't know. I'm assuming this was when things weren't being recorded.
The mother was, for Yusuf, was fighting pretty hard to get in there in the first place, too.
Yes.
Right.
She was. All right, the last little tidbit that I have for you was the big controversy around Trump and his words.
Right, saying they should all get the death penalty.
Right, so as you remember, he said that they were guilty, that they were all these horrible things, and that they should get the death penalty for what they did. This was before they ever went to trial. Mm-hmm. This was just in the media.
It was in the media, blowing up in the media.
Basically. Right. Well, so you have all these articles justifying it back then. Well, your favorite person in the whole entire world, Ann Coulter?
I don't know actually as much about her.
Okay, well, she is a very interesting person. She is...
I think I might know who it is, but I'm not sure.
She's more Republican, for sure. She has a lot of Republican views. She has recently been in the news for saying a lot of things about abortion, and also saying that we should invade Mexico.
Is she the blonde lady from Fox News?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I know who she is then.
She was very big on building the wall and things like that. Just to paint a picture.
Yeah.
So she has this whole website where she just writes columns expressing her views. And she wrote about this case. And I went and read it all. She's very much defending Trump, his beliefs, and saying that, yes, they should have got the death penalty and that we're all crazy for believing that they're not guilty.
Even though that they're
even though there was a trial and they were.
So we've talked about the fact that there's a very good possibility that they were at least partially guilty of some things, mm-hmm. but
she believes they did it all.
Right. That she disbelieves that doesn't sound like a word. She doesn't believe that the DNA evidence of Mateus Reyes is actually reliable, which that to
or
me
she
is,
probably believes that Mateus Reyes and the boys did
they
it.
should just include him in the death penalty group. Well, yeah, I can see her feeling that way.
So just presenting a well-rounded view, that is what her beliefs are. If you want to do more research, I will put that below as well. But that's all up to you. So now that we have all the information out, any changes in your opinions, any points you want to bring up, anything?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, it did sway me more towards they probably did more than I realized that they did in mm-hmm. terms of bad things that night. I still don't think they participated in, at least, I don't think they were the ones who did the essay from the sounds of it. They may have assaulted her, which is still not good, still not okay. They may have witnessed things, but they the next step into the essay part of it, and even maybe the next step into the bigger portion of the assault, where they or someone caused skull fractures and things like that. I'm not sold that they did that part, that they went that far. So I feel like they're not as innocent as I thought they were originally at the beginning of this, but I still think they're innocent of the big part of it, that they were proven innocent and let go for after, serving all that time. So yeah, I think it lowered my view of them a little bit. The one thing you're saying, other things to bring up, let's try to end on a good note. So we don't always believe that prison reforms, and in this case it may not have reformed, but I think you said they did a lot of good things after they got out.
They did.
So anything you can remember specifically about that? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but any things you can remember that they did, any good things that they did after they got out to make the world a better place, I guess?
Yeah, well, I think they did a lot of very good things. They did a lot of donating money to organizations, standing for organizations, and all of that. I do think that this got brought up at a very pivotal time in our country. Yeah. 2020 was when they released the Netflix series and everything blew up.
Which was during COVID, during all of the protests that happened during COVID.
Right.
Even one of them close here in Missouri too.
Yeah. And even if their legacy was to bring more attention to police brutality and police-centered racism, I think that's,
right.
That's a great thing. Definitely, this is my plug. Go read or watch more about this, but watch the Central Park 5 Netflix series, When They See Us. It's really well done. It's biased.
Right.
Just to let you know.
That's the reason that you wanted to do it this way, is because we've talked about documentaries being biased. And
it's not a documentary technically. It is a show based on real events.
Kind of. So how do I describe that? Like, I don't know how you would describe or how you would categorize that kind of show. But basically what you're saying is they did interviews with them, right?
No? Yeah, but I think like the majority of the show was like a reenactment type of thing.
Right. So
like it wasn't them, it was
this was the court case, this was
actors,
the scene,
yes.
Actors replaying things. Okay.
Yes. It's well done.
Right.
I will say. But it's very one-sided. But read everything you can, consume everything you can about this case, because I want y'all to decide on your own.
And at the end of the day, the good thing in this, as messed up as it is, the good thing in it is that I forgot her first name. I can actually Trisha. Trisha Meili's doesn't actually remember this happening, which is good because it sounds very traumatic. And that also she is a survivor, and she
works with other survivors
and being really strong and making a difference in the world. So it's good to, in this case, shout out the victim basically and say like, hey, this victim is making a good impact on the world too.
Yep. So that is the end.
They're a three-parter.
They're a three-parter. And I'm ready to do a couple just one-parters for a while.
The three-parters, we've done a couple type, multi-part ones. And by the end of it, you can probably tell, but our energy gets a little lower by the end of it, because it's just kind of, when you get set on one case, it's almost like you're just kind of like, it brings you down a little bit. Like you get so into it and you get so into something horrible happened. Like, yes, you move on to a different case that's horrible, but at least like when you move on to that other case, maybe there's some different silver linings to look at to make you feel a little more hopeful in humanity.
Yeah, for sure. But I got some good stuff coming up. So
Yeah,
stay tuned.
She always does.
Hopefully I did this justice. I did my best, man.
Yeah, she worked really hard on it. She always does.
But I got some good ones coming up. I'm excited.
Awesome. So, I'm excited too. And I will eventually work on another case too. Eventually.
Yes.
I got to figure out what I want to do. So it just, something has to pique my interest. And at that point, I'll do it. We talked about she's actually wearing an AC/DC shirt. We talked about doing the case on Bon Scott. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments if any of that sounds interesting to you guys.
Yes, please let us know. And we will see you guys next time.
All right. See you guys. Peace.
Bye.
Hi guys, I just wanted to say I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like any of the content for Code 187, please click that subscribe button, that like button, that share button. Help us out, help us grow. You can find us on your favorite podcast platforms. Yeah, check us out on there. Give us some ratings. Tell us what you think. We're also across every social media on Code 187. So we're on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I think that's it. And of course, YouTube. So please, please, please subscribe if you like our content and spread the word. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.